All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to our college preparation session today on advising students on what colleges really look for. My name is Samantha Jackson. I'm a college and career readiness consultant at Kent ISD, so I work with schools in Kent County or the kind of greater Grand Rapids area. As I'm going through a few housekeeping items, if you want to just go ahead and throw some information in the chat for me, just introduce yourself. And then what question do students ask the most about class options? So this session is being recorded and you'll get a copy of the recording and all of the slides and everything after the session. There will be a couple of points where we have some discussion. So that's obviously only going to be as productive as we make it. So I encourage you to share your thoughts and insights and questions throughout. If you do have any questions, you can throw those in the chat at any time, and I'll try to make sure we address those. So go ahead if you want to throw your introduction in the chat, and then again, just any questions you might get around this topic about class selection. And yes, I know we have some elementary and middle school folks on that might not get many questions related to this. That's okay. All right, keep going. Go ahead and keep throwing those in the chat. Okay, yeah, what class should I take if I want to go to a specific college or university? Oh, we have a lot of middle school and elementary today. Okay, well, hopefully this is good, helpful information for everyone then. Is it better to get an A in a standard class or a B? Ooh, great question. We're going to talk about that. Okay, so I want to preface this by saying that if you've been to any of the college prep sessions in the past, I come from higher ed. This is like my love. This particular topic, I am excited to share this information, but I am absolutely not like the most expert in this topic. So I'm going to share some really great information. I've got really great insights from some friends in admissions who were gracious enough to share some information with us. But if you do have specific questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. If I don't, if I don't know the answer, I will find an answer for you and get that back to you. All right, so the first thing that I want to start with is that here, the thing we're going to be talking about today is good to know for any school, but it doesn't necessarily apply to every school, right? When we're looking at college admissions, most colleges do what is called a holistic admissions process, meaning that they're looking at not only the classes students have taken, but also their grades, their extracurriculars, leadership, the whole picture of the student. And so a lot of the information today is going to be focused on those more selective institutions. Here in Michigan, though, we have 11 institutions that are part of the Michigan Assured Admissions Pact, meaning that if a student has a 3.0 or higher, they are guaranteed admission to any of these 11 public schools. And so when we're talking about what classes are best for students and kind of the for selective institutions, here in Michigan, we're really focusing on a very small handful of schools. So good information to have, great if you have students who are looking to go to more selective institutions elsewhere, but a lot of this information is focused on that. It's not necessarily focused on these schools where, again, it doesn't really matter what classes they take. They're looking at their GPA and saying, hey, if you have a 3.0, you're admitted. The same is true for a lot of our smaller private schools in the state. They don't necessarily have that GPA cutoff, but again, they're not necessarily looking at the makeup of classes. They're looking at, the GPA, the test scores, whatever else is involved in their admissions process. So just keep that in mind as we go along. This is not the case for every single school out there. I'm not saying that you have to take 20 APs to get into, Grand Valley. That's not the case. So just keep that in mind as we go along. All right, so wanting to start with just some kind of baseline information. I'm glad we have so many middle and elementary counselors on today. So I just want to make sure we're all kind of starting at the same level with some baseline information. So when thinking about college admissions, most colleges are evaluating on several different things. And again, they're looking at that kind of holistic process. So they're looking at things beyond grades, but in terms of the actual classes that students are taking, they're looking at the strength of their curriculum or their rigor. So are they taking, advanced or honors classes that are available to them? They're looking at their grades in challenging courses. So like someone asked, is it better to get an A in a standard class or a B in an honors or AP class? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. They're looking at their progression over time. So did their grades go down once they started taking more advanced classes? Did they stop taking less advanced classes in their senior year? They're looking at, kind of the pattern of grades and classes over time. They're looking for alignment with academic interests. We're going to talk about this a lot more later, but are they just taking a bunch of classes to kind of pad their GPA, or are they taking things that are really going to help them in the interest area that they have? And probably most importantly, a thing that we don't often think about is they're looking at the context of the high school. So a school that offers 20 AP classes is going to look a little different than a school that offers 1 or 2 AP classes. Obviously, students have different opportunities to take different classes at different schools. And so they're not looking at students apples to apples, right? Like they don't have the same opportunities to take the same classes. So they're looking at them in relation to the things that are offered to them at their high school. And so when we're talking about rigor specifically, admissions officers are looking at what opportunities are available. So again, do they have AP opportunities? Do they have an IB program? Do they have CTE programs? We're going to go through all those acronyms in just a minute. But what things are actually available to students at their specific school? Did the student take challenging courses relative to their school? And did the student pursue depth in areas of interest? So I'm going to start off with a really, really basic example here. We're going to have a couple of student case studies in a little bit, but just a really basic example. When we're looking at these two students, student A versus student B, if student A takes 4 AP courses that are kind of a random selection, maybe they're like an AP Bio, an AP US History, an AP English, and an AP, I don't know, Computer Science or something. And they've got pretty good grades. Maybe it's like A, Bs, average grades. And then you've got student B who's taken 2 AP classes, plus a CTE, or a career technical education, and an engineering pathway. They have a very focused STEM interest with strong grades, so they're straight A's. Admissions officers are probably going to look more highly on student B, even though they've taken less AP courses, they took a kind of different path, but really their transcript should tell a story. They don't want to see people just taking random classes, just again, to help pad their GPA or to boost it in different ways. They're really looking to make sure that it tells a story and it makes sense for what the student wants to do next. So we're going to talk about all the variety of ways that can happen. And again, I know for a lot of you, this might be just a refresher. I just want to make sure we all have the same basic understanding of all of these different types of opportunities for students. So the first one I'm going to talk about is advanced placement, or AP. So AP is course by course rigor. So students are choosing individual classes rather than committing to a full program. So just because a student decides to take, AP US history doesn't mean they have to take AP World History or AP European or AP Government. They can just take one AP History class if they want. They don't have to commit to a full program. So typical features of AP classes are that they are college-level curriculum taught in their high school that are aligned to a national framework. So it is an actual program that with a standard curriculum. There's end-of-the-year standardized AP exams. The coursework is graded, but it's determined by a high school teacher versus some of the other options we'll look at that are taught by college professors. And for many schools, it offers a weighted GPA, meaning that students are getting, on a 5.0 scale instead of a 4.0 scale, which is how we're seeing those 4.6 GPAs. But again, not in all schools, but in many schools. AP can be really good for students who want academic rigor, but want some schedule flexibility because it's all taken at their high school. If they really prefer a subject-specific challenge, so again, they want to take all of the courses in the history sequence or all of the courses that are offered in English, and is good for students applying to selective universities. Some of the strengths are that it's widely recognized, it demonstrates academic rigor, and it does have that standardized curriculum where we're all trying to teach to the same thing. Some of the limitations are that exam performance matters for credit. So for students to get college credit for AP classes, they have to take the AP exam at the end of the year, and they have to score, it goes from a 1 to a 5, and most selective institutions are looking for maybe a 4 or a 5 in order to get credit. Some schools will accept a 3, not generally highly selective schools. We're really looking for 4s and 5s, which are pretty hard to get. And so if they're not great test takers, if they don't really know the material, like let's say they get an A in the class, that doesn't mean they're going to get a 5 on the exam. So it can be a challenge for students who maybe aren't really prepared for the exam if they're trying to get that college credit. It also potential caution that heavy AP loads can lead to stress and grade drops, which may weaken the transcript. So again, they're looking for that pattern over time. So when they get into that AP classes, their grade all of a sudden drop. Are they getting a B, which is still looking good on their transcript in terms of GPA, but when you look at the overall picture, all of a sudden they're getting Bs or Cs. The next is the International Baccalaureate. So IB is a cohesive academic program. So it's not just those individual courses, it is a sequence that students are committing to. There are a few different variations of this. There's the actual IB diploma, there's certifications, some just offer courses in this, so it looks a little bit different at different schools. But generally, the IB diploma includes 6 subject areas where students are taking exams in each of those areas at the end of their high school career. And students are taking courses at 2 levels, higher level and standard level. And then there's additional required components, including an extended essay, theory of knowledge course, and CAS experiences, which are community, I forgot something in service. So some additional experiences that are required. So for admissions officers, this looks great because it's a structured, highly rigorous program. It has strong writing, research, and critical thinking emphasis. It can be really good for students who enjoy writing, inquiry, interdisciplinary learning. It is a 2-year commitment if they're completing the full IB diploma. So they have to be committed to completing that. And it is an internationally recognized academic credential. Some limitations are that, again, less flexibility, and it does require that long-term commitment. Oops, sorry, I forgot to put that up. Next, we have dual enrollment, which allows students to take college courses while in high school. Students earn high school credit and college credit simultaneously. Different schools have different requirements for this, but many schools only offer dual enrollment for courses beyond what they're able to offer in their own school. So if your school already offers pre-calc, they're not going to sometimes they won't let students take that at the college. So dual enrollment is strong when the course is academically rigorous, it aligns with student interests, and we need to make sure that the credits are likely to transfer. So there is a whole Michigan transfer website that students can look at to see if credits will transfer from the school they're going to do dual enrollment at to a school that they're interested in. For example, the University of Michigan is notorious for not accepting transfer credits. So dual enrollment might not be the best option for students who want to transfer credits there. Whereas many other schools in Michigan will gladly accept credits. Sometimes it's only for specific classes though, so we have to make sure that it lines up with what they're looking at. So it does require a little bit of research on the student's part to make sure that it is going to count towards the place that they want to go. Some strengths of dual enrollment are that it's a real college experience. They get college credit, and often, again, depending on the school, can be transferable credits. Limitations, again, we have to make sure that the credits will transfer. The course rigor can vary by institution. So taking a dual enrollment class at a community college might look very different than taking it at a local state university. So there are different pros and cons and options for students to take those courses. And it can also be a little bit difficult in terms of scheduling logistics because they're working with the college in addition to their high school schedule. So trying to figure out when those courses are and when they can fit them in can be a little bit difficult. Then we have early middle college, similar to dual enrollment, but also kind of not. So early middle college, again, integrates high school and college coursework, but this is in a structured pathway. So in dual enrollment, students can take just one class. Like let's say they have gotten through all of the math courses that you offer and they want to take Calc 2 or Calc 3 at the college level. They can just go and take that one class and then do everything else at their high school. Early middle college is a structured pathway for students where they have set classes that they're intended to take. Students typically begin early middle college programs in 10th or 11th grade. In Michigan, early middle college requires a 13th year for completion, which is their high school diploma and an associate's degree. But some early middle college programs, they'll leave with maybe not an associate's degree, but with 30 to 60 college credits. It is a really good way for students to earn significant college credit. It's a structured pathway, which for some students is just a little bit easier to follow than kind of picking and choosing those one classes. And can have great cost savings because the students aren't paying for these courses. Some limitations, again, that reduced high school flexibility in terms of their electives and extracurriculars that they can take. And then again, making sure that those credits actually transfer. And then the last program type is career and technical education, or CTE. So if you have a tech center in your county, that would be this, or some specific high schools have tech center programs. So CTE programs are multi-year career pathways that combine academic coursework with technical skill development. They're often very hands-on. Students typically participate in, again, 2 to 3 years. There are 1-year programs as well, but oftentimes they're a couple of years. With hands-on technical learning, they get industry certifications and credentials, and they participate in work-based learning, so doing internships and job shadowing. CTE is especially valuable when the pathway aligns with the student's career interests. They're getting those certifications, they're getting those experiences through internships, but they do need to make sure that they maintain strong core academics. Some limitations, it is often misunderstood by families in terms of, can you get into a selective college by taking CTE classes? We'll talk about that in a second. And it still must be paired with academic rigor for selective colleges. So for some CTE classes, they can get credit for some of their core subjects through the MMC by taking CTE. And as you'll see in an example in just a second, we do have to make sure that, if it's something, for example, like in engineering, that they can't decide to replace a math credit or a science credit with their CTE program. They need to make sure that they're keeping up that academic rigor in their core classes as well. So it's a really great kind of additional thing for some of those types of programs. All right, our first interactive part, and would love for anyone to come off mute or throw it in the chat. First question, which program do families in your district believe is the best for college admissions? So all those that we just described, AP, IB, dual enrollment, early middle college, CTE. AP, IB, AP, yes. Early middle college, dual, okay. Love that we got a couple of those. And we have, very few schools in the Kent County area. I don't know about the greater state that offer IB, but AP, honors dual enrollment. Absolutely. And I think a big part, the push for AP, part of it is the GPA, right? So if you're getting it on a 5-point scale, it looks really good if you have a 4.5 GPA. Some schools also weight honors courses, some don't. Great. In which program do you think colleges actually value most? The second part, what do colleges value most? Okay, I love we're getting some variety, still some AP, transcript grades, dual enrollment, depends on the college, early middle college, CTE, yes. Great, okay, well, I'm excited to go ahead then. Okay, so I'm going to launch a couple of polls here. We're going to do some Mythbusters. Let me get this pulled up. Okay, so hopefully it should pop up on your screen there. There's 4 different questions. I think it'll show them all for you. Is the poll showing up? Okay, I see a couple responses. So the 4 questions in the poll, the first is more, well, I guess they're not really questions, statements. More APs equal better admissions chances. The second is dual enrollment is always better than AP. The third is CTE doesn't help college applications. And the fourth is students must maximize rigor every year. Okay, our responses have trickled down. So I will assume most people who have wanted to participate will. Okay, I think I'm going to share it. Let's see if I can do it correctly. I hope the results are sharing. You would think by now I would know how to work Zoom. All right, so number 1, more APs equal better admissions chances. So this was pretty close to a 50-50 split on myth versus reality. So colleges prefer challenging but manageable loads with strong grades. So again, we know that if a student has taken 6 AP classes and they've gotten a B in every single one, that's not necessarily going to look as good as a student who's taken a couple APs, maybe an honors, maybe some standard classes, and gotten an A in every one. So just because they're taking an AP class does not mean that they're going to have a better chance at admission. Of course, they're looking for both the rigor and the grades, but again, it needs to be a good balance of those. So that is a myth. Number 2, dual enrollment is always better than AP. Most people got that. Myth. It's, again, highly dependent on the transfer policies. Some selective colleges do specify that they prefer AP or IB classes, so it is important for students to look at the specific schools that they're interested in. But again, a lot of it really depends on those transfer policies. If you're doing dual enrollment to actually try to get those college credits, some people just want to do it because it looks good on their transcript. That's one thing. But if they're looking to actually get the college credits, we have to make sure that it's going to transfer to the institution that they're interested in the specific area. And what I mean by that is sometimes students will try to take like the lower level of a class that's required for their major. Some schools don't like it when you do that. They want you to take their full course load, their intro classes, on up through their institution. Or sometimes students will do it to try to get gen eds out of the way, but we have to make sure that they actually count for that institution's gen ed. So again, just a lot of variability there when it comes to the transfer policies. Number 3, CTE doesn't help college applications. A myth, and I'm glad that most people said myth. But this is obviously what we hear from a lot of parents, right? Like a lot of parents think that you can't be, admitted to a selective school if you do CTE. I have my own niece is at a school I won't name in this area, and she wanted to do a CTE program in healthcare. She wants to go into nursing, and her counselor told her she couldn't get into a good college if she did that. And so instead, she's staying at her high school and not really taking anything related to her interest area when she could be getting ahead in that specific area. So we know, obviously, it depends on the interest of the student and what they're really looking to do. And we do need to maintain that academic rigor. But it does demonstrate direction, initiative, real world skills that they gain through CTE programs, and is especially powerful when it's tied to that specific career interest. If, like, in that example, if my niece was like, oh, I'm going to go do welding, and then like, no, that's not going to help. But if it's related to the career interest, that can be helpful. The fourth one, students must maximize rigor every year. Another one that is pretty split. So again, like kind of yes and no. But again, really colleges are looking for consistent challenge, not burnout. It's not going to do them a lot of good if they have a lot of burnt out students by the time they get to college. Again, will depend on the grades. So just because they can take 12 AP classes during their time doesn't mean they should. They're looking for intentionality. They're looking for those patterns. They're looking for the progression over the years and making sure that they stay consistent with those grades. Of course, we know that there are students who can take 12 AP classes and still get all A's, but they're completely burnt out by it. It's not necessarily necessary to get into a lot of these institutions. And again, we're talking about selective institutions. Obviously, there are some that are super, super selective where that is going to be kind of a requirement. But they're also looking at them holistically, right? So they're looking at their extracurriculars and their leadership and all of those other components as well as the academic rigor. So like I said at the beginning, the best transcript will tell a story. So strong transcripts will show that increased rigor, it'll show intellectual curiosity, it'll show direction and academic success. The goal isn't to pick the most impressive classes, it's to build an academic pathway that fits the student and signals readiness for what comes next. So again, that can come in a lot of different ways. There is no one size fits all for every student. It really needs to depend on the individual student and what their goals are. All right, so as I mentioned, I was able to have a lot of conversations with some great admissions colleagues. And this was a specific example that my pal from Michigan Tech shared for me to share during this presentation. So he said this scenario actually just came up for him in the last couple of weeks. He was talking to a student who's a junior in high school who's interested in engineering at Michigan Tech. The student is currently enrolled in early middle college and a CTE engineering course and was wondering what he should do for for his senior year. If he should focus on dual enrollment, should he take some more AP classes, should he continue in CTE senior year, or should he finish his early middle college program? So some considerations we're looking at: AP versus dual enrollment, early middle college versus dual enrollment, CTE versus potentially academic rigor. Does anyone want to, again, throw in the chat, or even better, come off mute and share what are some things that we might want to consider for this student? Yep, great question. Does the early middle college transfer to Michigan Tech? Does he want to finish his associates first? Great first question. So yeah, again, remember early middle college is that 13th year. We'll give them the associate. And that is one of the things that this admissions rep recommended to the student is that if you there's a specific program, the MTA, the Michigan Transfer Agreement, where they can get those credits transferred. And he actually recommended to the student that if he's able to do that, then that could be a good option. Academic abilities of student to handle each academic choice, absolutely. Finish EMC if it would transfer, if not CTE and APs. Absolutely. So yeah, again, early middle college dual enrollment, a lot of it depends on the transferability of those specific credits. So what this admissions rep told the student is much like what everyone is saying, right? What do you want to get out of this option that you have? So for this particular student, he mentioned that to the student that Michigan Tech doesn't prefer AP or dual enrollment, whichever one they take is fine with them. And it really depends on the student and their interests and the reason that they want AP, dual enrollment, early middle college, etc. So some of the benefits of doing AP for a school like Michigan Tech, or kind of in general, our classes are at a slower pace than a regular college class, which can be good for some students. Typically, they're taking that over the course of a year instead of a semester. It's a good option if they take tests well. So again, if they're looking for those credits, they need to score a 4 or 5 to get the credit at Michigan Tech for those tests. And they get to stay at their school and take classes with their classmates. So pretty familiar environment. Dual enrollment is great if they want to take classes at a regular college pace to really understand what college feels like. They can earn a C or higher to get credit. So it's good for students who maybe aren't as good at standardized test taking. And they get to take classes with other college students from around the area. When considering dual enrollment, early middle college, again, it also depends on if they want it just for their transcript or if they want it to actually get credits. So again, making sure that the specific classes they are taking will transfer to Michigan Tech in this example. Earning the MTA, the Michigan Transfer Agreement, is a very good idea. And then he said that he gets this question a lot with students about CTE because we have a lot of CTE programs related to STEM, engineering, things like that. And he said that for engineering students in particular, it's a great option for students to take CTE as long as they can continue taking those higher levels of math and physics. So if they have to sacrifice taking Calc 2 to be able to do a CTE program, it might not be as worth it. But if they can achieve those high levels of math courses and take CTE, it provides them with a lot of really great experience in hands-on learning, which is really valuable for a school like Michigan Tech that really focuses on hands-on learning. But math is very important for engineering. So they want them to be ready for at least Calc 1 when they get to campus. And so they want to make sure that they can take that and do the CTE courses. So again, depends a little bit on the student and where they're at. But if they can do both of those things, then it can be a really, really valuable addition to their application. And then really importantly is just making sure that students are reaching out to the specific schools that they're interested in or looking on their website, seeing what they say. To the schools they're seriously considering because this answer does vary between schools and even programs within schools. So again, this was the case for engineering at Michigan Tech. Michigan Tech does have more than engineering. So if you're going into like a humanities, it's going to look a little bit different than if you want to go into engineering. But overall, they're really looking for a strong GPA. And these overalls were really a compilation of multiple people I spoke to. So people from Michigan Tech, Georgia, South Carolina, Denver, like really kind of all over. And really all agreed that the strong GPA and steady performance and the upward trend in the grades and GPA is really important. Steady grades, especially in classes that support the major, and a mixture of challenging courses through senior year. So again, making sure we're not front loading all of those and then posting senior year, that we're seeing that upward trajectory. So really this breaks down into kind of 4 big areas. So again, first that question of did the student challenge themselves? So what admissions readers are looking for first on a student's transcript? Their highest level of math achieved. So did they get up to pre-calc, calc 1, algebra 2, whatever their highest class was? The number of advanced courses, so that could be a combination of AP, IB, dual enrollment, and the difficulty of their core courses. So if they took all standard general core courses and only took AP and, electives, that looks a little bit different. Strong rigor signals, again, this is for those most selective institutions. Those strong rigor signals are students who have taken, calculus or AP Calc, AP Physics, IB, higher level courses, college level coursework. But again, it doesn't necessarily specify. Any of these is great to show that rigor. Moderate rigor signals are honors classes, algebra 2 as their highest math, and maybe 1 to 2 advanced courses. Sorry, I keep forgetting to click. So next we're looking at, did the students succeed in those classes? So are their grades strong in the challenging courses, or did grades decline when rigor increased? So in this example, if student A took 5 AP courses, but mostly had B minus, C pluses, and student B took 2 AP courses with strong A grades, many admissions readers are going to favor student B. Performance matters just as much, if not more, than the course labels. So again, that question that came up earlier of which one is better? Should I take all these AP classes or should I do better in standard ones? Yes, we need a mixture of both. If you know that English is not your best subject, maybe don't take all of the AP English classes just because it's an AP class. Maybe we focus on our strengths and things that are going to relate more to our career interests. Does the transcript tell a story? So again, admissions officers notice patterns. So for example, if a student says they're interested in STEM, they're looking for a kind of STEM-focused transcript. Have they taken, again, AP science courses, AP math courses, an engineering CTE pathway, a robotics class, or a robotics club? For healthcare, again, have they taken those AP science classes, anatomy and physiology, health sciences CTE? Have they done any type of internship or job shadow? For the social sciences, again, depending on which social sciences they're looking at, but, taking AP history and government and economics and writing. So really focusing on the student's strengths and interests. Direction and intellectual curiosity really stand out in those areas. And then lastly, did the student take advantage of opportunities? So again, admissions readers are only considering the student in their school context. So they're looking at what courses does the high school offer? Did the student pursue the most challenging options available? Not in every single class, but did they pursue challenging options? Did they explore their interests deeply? So again, instead of just taking 5 random APs, did they take 3, but then really dig deeper into a couple of areas or an area? Example, a school offers 5 AP courses. The student takes 3 AP courses in dual enrollment. The admissions officers rarely are asking, did the student take the most AP classes possible? Instead, they ask, did the student challenge themselves and succeed? All right, what time are we at here? I think we have time for this. Okay, so I have a student example here. I'm gonna throw this in the chat. This is the next interactive component because we're gonna go into some breakout rooms, so please participate. So I just threw the link in the chat. I don't know why it didn't link it. There's a link and QR code up here too, but I have a student example. Show you here. So you'll see 2 different pages for this student. The first page is for this student if they were to go and really focus on taking AP classes. And the second is if they were to do something like a CTE route. And so in your breakout rooms, at the bottom of each of these pages, you'll see some discussion questions for the AP route versus the CTE route. And so for about the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to have you go into some breakout rooms, look through this information. Obviously, this is not all of the information possible about this student, but you can make up your own additional information if you need to. But, talk through some of those discussion questions. How might you advise this student? What do you think they're looking for? So let's see. Okay, I'm going to open up some breakout rooms. Kind of big. Okay, so I'm going to open them up. I'll give you about 10 minutes to discuss, and then we will come back. If you get done early, feel free to come back to this room, but then we will discuss. All right, so would love to hear, we only have a few minutes left, so I'd just love like a quick overview from any groups, if you have any insights to share on any of these questions. So for the first one, again, really focusing on the AP courses, the questions, would this transcript be competitive for a highly selective institution? What strengthens the student's application beyond the transcript? What advice would you give them? And if the student took AP Bio, AP Chem, AP Physics, but dropped digital design, would their application be stronger or weaker? I'd really love to hear answers to numbers 1 and 4. So would this be competitive? And if they took those, dropped their digital design, would it be stronger or weaker?
I think the most competitive aspect would be in comparison to what the high school offers.
Yes.
Because if this is a high school that has multiple classes, perhaps for the very highly selective, it might be a little weak. But if that is the multitude of what the high school can provide, then it's a strong one.
Yep. And again, so we're making a lot of assumptions here. We're going to assume that in both of these scenarios, Maya has the best grades. Maya's a straight A student, getting A's and everything, right? Doing super awesome. We're going to assume, again, based on the comparison to the high school, that she is maxing out on, the rigor. So yeah, again, we'll depend on those factors to determine if this is really competitive for a highly selective institution.
Oh yeah, if it assumes that is the strongest of the schedule she can take, it has to be.
And then what about for our CTE option here? Do you think that taking that digital marketing CTE pathway weakened the student's application versus the AP option? And how could the CTE pathway add value to the student's application? So again, will depend on the context of the school, specific institutions that she's applying to. But from all of my admissions colleagues that were given this information, they said, no, it really doesn't. As long as the academic rigor remains strong and the pathway actually adds direction and applied experience in these areas, and that selective colleges are increasingly valuing purposeful academic exploration. We have so many students that are just taking all the APs, graduating with those super high GPAs, really impressive. But we're really looking for people who have done some work to make sure that it's purposeful. And then again, CTE gives them those hands-on experiences. It should provide that student with a portfolio that they can walk away with, which is going to be required for any selective arts type program. So we'll actually give the students some advantages in this area, just based on the things that they are taking away from their program that otherwise they would maybe have to do on their own. Okay, we have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to jump over here really quick. Got a couple slides on this that you can look at later if you'd like to. I also have in here a link to another resource for you just to take a look at. And so this is like kind of looking at, kind of word heavy, I'm really sorry. But looking at this same type of student, if they, really focus on AP versus CTE versus dual enrollment, and really kind of what that would look like and how they could stay competitive in each of those areas. So again, that will be in the PowerPoint slide that you will get in a couple of days. So to wrap up, really, when we're thinking about advising these students, it really needs to focus on the individual student. Obviously, you all know your school context better than anyone, and what your school offers, so that's going to look a little bit different. But we really need to focus on that individual student and what makes the most sense for them. So talking to students, and I wish that someone had asked me why in the world I was taking like AP Calc BC when I definitely did not need to take that in high school. Wish I had never taken that in high school. And like really did not need in my psychology major. So, there are a lot of things that we're doing just because we think that we're supposed to, or that students are doing because they think they're supposed to. But, when they're asking which class is best, really focusing on what are their post-secondary goals, what courses connect to their interests, and where will they succeed academically. And again, for different students, this will look different ways. Any of these paths can be viable to still get to those highly selective institutions. It is important that students are in contact with schools. Admissions representatives are happy to talk to them about these options to see what makes the most sense for the schools they're interested in. Schools have a lot of information on their websites about what this looks like. So it's really important to be mindful of what the school actually is looking for. These are very general suggestions that we've gone over today, to hopefully point you in the right direction with your students. But just knowing that there is no one option that is the best for every student, and that all of these can be viable options that can still lead students to highly selective institutions, for any of these options. All right, the last thing I have here is your sketch code. Let me get the link again for you here. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat for you. It'll ask you which session. It's the 4th session. And then the code is 310. I also use the Zoom data though, so if you make a mistake on this somehow, that's okay. Again, it's session 4, and the code is 310. All right, I'll leave that up for just a second, but if you have any questions, feel free to hang around. I will share my email address in just a second. Once I take this down, you're always welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions. And like I said, if I don't know the answer, especially on this topic, I will get you an answer. There's my email address if you need it. Thank you all for spending your Tuesday afternoon with me.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you. I'll hang out here just for a second in case you have questions. Otherwise, you're welcome to go. Oops.